Welcome to the Overheard Podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel. With me always is my co-host,
Matty Rage. Let's go.
Let's go. Very special day today. Before we get things started, we want to start with a acknowledgement to the Day of Truth and Reconciliation. He's got the shirt. Every child matters. Before we begin, we want to take a moment to acknowledge today is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's time to honor the children who have never returned home, the survivors of residential schools and their families and communities. We recognize the ongoing impacts of colonialism and we are committed here at the Overheard Podcast to learning, listening, and taking meaningful action towards reconciliation in the town of Banff and across Canada, wherever we go. Big part of life here in Banff. If you live in the town of Banff, you're living on some sacred ground, in my opinion, and a lot of First Nations opinions as well. So, very special day to take a moment to acknowledge that. So,
100%.
Yeah. Before we move on, if it's your first time joining us, don't forget to give us a little like and subscribe. That's pretty much all we'll go into that for now. Very special guest today. We have Town Council hopeful Seth Enriquez. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
No, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
How's the morning going so far?
It's been excellent. Busy, a lot of life with my kids.
Nice.
But also a really nice walk over, so doing great.
Yeah, it's really starting to feel like fall. I feel like the last few days.
Yeah, it's been some, we've had some banging fall weather though. It's been, we've been pretty lucky this year.
I would agree. Once again, before we get too far into things, let's go check in with our friends over at Drink Shaft. They just won a bunch of awards, actually.
Sick.
I'll pull them up while we're listening to their ad, and we'll be right back with you. Alrighty, welcome back to the Overheard Podcast. So Drink Shaft, our good friends over at Drink Shaft, just won Best in Class at the Alberta Beverage Awards.
Nice.
Delicious stuff. We do the non-alcoholic ones. It's great in the morning. Seth, what do you think?
This one has alcohol, I feel. No, this is great. I endorse it.
So fall into Shaft. Let's keep the party going. You've been enjoying Shaft all summer. Grab yourself the non-alcoholic one, especially as winter activities approach. What a convenient way to caffeinate in the morning.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Crush 2 of those on the chairlift.
100%.
Oh yeah, but you'd be ready to rip all day.
And the alcoholic ones, I saw too on one of their posts that if you take one can and put it in 2 little glasses, it's like 2 shafts in one can.
Oh, they're 2 serving.
So you can always share one with a friend.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Go.
Big shout out to the Rose and Crown in the meantime. All right. So, Seth, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
For those that haven't met Seth Enriquez, he was born in Los Angeles, California, and spent formative years in Little Rock, Arkansas, Hamilton, Ontario, and Toronto before eventually making Banff home with his wife, Britt, and their 4 children. He studied philosophy at McMaster's University and went on to complete a master's in divinity at Wycliffe College in Toronto and is now pursuing a master's in philosophy at Biola University.
Wow,
that is accurate.
In Banff, Seth serves as the Rector of St. George in the Pines Anglican Church and as director of Banff Food and Friends. Outside of work, he's an avid reader and writer who loves spending time with the family. At the heart of their work is a commitment to helping Banff be a place where residents not only belong, but truly flourish. Right on. What does that mean to you? Let's say, like, not only belong, but truly flourish.
Sorry. Yeah. I think there's a sense in which, and I think we'll get into it as we have our conversation, we can have a baseline or a metric which we just get by, and then we get comfortable and normalize a kind of getting by way of existing. And I think that we don't have to accept that. I think that we can work hard as a community, as individuals, to come together to make a life that you're not just waking up and being like, okay, just another day, but actually have a measure like a joy and looking forward to the future.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would agree. And like, excuse me. Well, what a place to wake up and be inspired.
Oh my goodness!
Like it doesn't
Yeah.
take much than just looking out the window to be inspired here in Banff. How did you find yourself here in the first place?
Oh my goodness. Well, My wife is she grew up outside of Calgary, so she's from the province. And so I met her in Toronto, though, when I was doing graduate work there. And then that's where we got married and began our life together. And so then her younger brother was getting married here in the Bow Valley in Canmore. So we came out and I did the tourist thing. And checked out Banff. It was wonderful. It was very, very beautiful. I contributed to the traffic. No, hate me. And then we saw the church, gorgeous church, because I was working at a church in Toronto. And so I was like, hey, they're hiring. You should apply. And I was convinced Banff is too beautiful. They're not going to hire some like young punk that has no experience. Typically for these nice positions, you get someone who's like pay their dues, so to speak, and then get to like maybe end their career in a beautiful place like Banff.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she kept persisting, and then eventually, this would have been October 2019, mid or late October, I got a call. It was an Alberta number, and I thought, this is terrible. I'm a bad person. I thought it was my mother-in-law. So I was working, so I'm like, I didn't pick it up. I'm like, I'm in the zone. And then I felt bad because she's a wonderful woman, Linda. I love you. And then I'm like, she's probably organizing life. So I did a call back. I should have her number on my phone. Anyways, I called back, and it was my future boss, the then rector of St. George's, Reverend Howard, shout out. And he basically is like, would you be interested in applying? And I do well in interviews, well enough. And I did everything wrong to dissuade him from hiring me. And I'm like, bro, I'm not even ordained. You guys need a priest and blah, blah, blah. And he just was quiet. He's like, if I could sort that out for you, would you consider coming to Banff? That's how he said it. I was like, consider? I'm in. I will sign anything. So it happened overnight. And by November, we flew us out for the interview. By December, I had been offered the position. And then we moved in here to Banff in January 2020, which was a hilarious time to move in here, but it did happen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, right during COVID, I guess, eh?
Yeah, because we moved in, but that didn't start work till like February. And so when I helped lead the first services, I did maybe like a handful, 4 maybe. And then we were shut down for like 2 years, bro. So people got to know me mediated through like Zoom or YouTube. And even Zoom, like people wouldn't turn on their cameras for X reasons. So I didn't really know them that well.
Yeah.
By the time we opened, they're like, oh, I've known you for years. And like, I am meeting you for the first time, That's pretty
cool.
That was like a blip, we all experienced. But now life has like become much different, and I appreciate it much more.
That's wild.
Well, I think there's something to say about, I don't know. I'm a firm believer of like acting on certain situations in life when they're presented to you. Right.
Yeah,
and like you said, like you did everything to dissuade him in the interview and still was offered like, hey, if we can make all this work, like, I think that's a strong sign that maybe you're meant to be here. In the end,
you know what? Not to be too like religious right now, but yeah, I would say coming from my tradition, like that was a God thing. Because I did everything wrong, and He made it happen. So I felt like, I'm meant to be here. So
wild.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What keeps you here long term?
Oh man. Well, I think when we first got here, I mean, the aggressive beauty. It's so aggressive, bro. Like you get grumpy, you walk outside, and you're like, man, you have to fight to be angry because the overwhelming power of nature, I think. But what really moved me and my wife, our family, to make Banff home, I've really come to love the people in the community. Like I've worked in as church is like an NFP, right? Like I work not for profit, and you try to get things done, and it's really challenging no matter what context you're in.
Right.
But coming to Banff, man, like you have a plan or initiative to like bless the town, to be a force for good. People come around, the town like steps in and helps you out. I've rarely felt this supported. And so like, if you want to do good, like you can do it in Banff. There's still hurdles and challenges. I want to be real about that. But I was like, no, like we can do good work here. And so the people, the heart, the vibe here, like I feel supported, and therefore it's a big part of why I want to get back and support.
Nice.
Yeah.
Common theme.
100%.
Like the community here is just widely different. Like I grew up in Southern Ontario. I lived downtown Toronto for like almost 4 years. And it's just, when you go from that to this, it's like people will say hi to you walking down the street that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Like
that's the best. I feel like that's one of the best parts of Banff. And like I love it too. Like we've seen someone on the trail you don't even know, and just hit them with a little hello. Like
and everybody's into it. Like you can sit at the bar and like shoot the shit with somebody like that you've never met before, and like make an actual connection instead of like, don't talk to me, like get away from me, I got my headphones in kind of vibe like that you get kind of in the big city, right? Like it can be a culture shock for sure.
Oh, 100%. No, 100%. And that's a gem. That's what we got to fight for Banff.
I would agree.
100%.
Banff's not the easiest place to stay long term. What advice would you give to someone who maybe just got here, is tuning in, that wants to make it their long term home?
Yeah, 100%. And you're right. It's not easy. And we're going to talk about that. And that's going to be part of the uphills, the challenges of Banff. But I would say, like connect and like find your community.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of pockets of people, you can be into all kind of different things, right? From like outdoor activities or maybe more reflective things, even spiritual things. Like find a community that you can come around, that you can connect, that you can know and be known as a person. Because functionally that's going to feed your soul, your heart. But also practically, I think you need to make connections, because that's likely how you're going to find, maybe if you're looking for better housing or maybe a work or job opportunity, or maybe, so activities is knowing people. So I would encourage anyone to not isolate. And I speak as someone who can sometimes be a little bit of a hermit.
Fair.
It's like I like my little tea in my book. It's like, no, you got to go out there and be social.
I think it's easy to do is kind of retreat into your own personal hobbies, right? Especially when things get tough. I think we all kind of, like we mentioned earlier, during the COVID years, kind of learned to do that quite well.
Yeah, when you didn't have a choice, you just
So I mean, like for some, it's been kind of tough to get out of that habit, right? So that would be some great advice, definitely, if you do want to stay here long term, is like finding your community. There's tons of cost efficient ways to do that too. Like I seen on Instagram, there's like a late night running club that's free. There's all types of the Women Nancy Paw Foundation put on tons of free stuff.
Oh yeah, they do.
Town of Banff, there's like an activity pass that you can sign up for. I think that is also free.
The boys at work are right into that. They'll go play like badminton and like do crazy,
man.
Like they're just like right into it. It's awesome.
And it's cool, stuff that's outside of going to the bar, which is also an easy way to be social if that's your thing. But that leads to its own sets of problems as well. Okay, so I might have said it wrong in the introduction. You in Banff, you serve as the rector of St. George.
Yeah, but I love the reactor though. I'm going to keep that a little bit.
I definitely had a little typo in there. That's my mistake. I want to apologize for that. What does that mean for those that might not know?
Yeah, there's a history to it. We don't have to go down that road, I suppose. It is fun, but practically speaking, it's a title for like the head priest of a church and parish.
Okay.
And there are different types of titles that were historically linked to how you were paid, I guess. But now it's like centralized. I get my stipend or my salary from our regional church office. So just the head priest of the church. Cool. I mean, practically that means that I'm the lead when it comes to our worshiping community on a Sunday or any days that we get together to worship. Like I'm the lead to organize that. It also means that our programming, that I basically have my lead for different things. I lead our corporation, the chair of the corporation of our council.
Cool.
For our flagship programs like Food and Friends. That's why I'm the director.
Food and Friends is a huge success, by the way. I've known a lot of people that have gone through that program, that work for them, with them. G1, big shout out.
Shout out G1.
Yeah. She's great. Catching her all the time.
She's solid.
So yeah, that's great. So your job involves running all these community programs and organizing.
So because you're the lead,
basically,
it's up to you, like what you do. There are the Anglican Church is huge. There are churches that rectors or priests that can show up on a Sunday, do the Sunday thing, and kind of glide. I'm not trying to like condemn anybody, but it's just that you could conceivably, I suppose, you could get away with doing that. But it's up to you what you want to do and how you want to do it. So I've been really privileged to have a really awesome church community that are super supportive, and so I get to collaboratively lead our programs and our worship life. So that's what being a rector would mean.
Very cool.
Amazing. Yeah. And how does that translate into your now run for town council?
I know, bro. Is the church coming back? No, I know people are concerned.
People are concerned.
Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't be concerned about that.
No, I'm joking, dude. Maybe people are concerned. We should be concerned for everyone sometimes. But what does it mean for me? Well, in my time here as serving at St. George's as a priest, my life here, my vocation has been connecting with people, listening to them. A lot of the issues that we're going to talk about, not only experiencing myself personally, but also witnessing people that I care about go through them firsthand. And so I've devoted my time in Banff, my life, my family to be of service to this community. And this opportunity is just another way for me to give back to a community that I love in maybe a different context.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, you raise a very interesting point about hearing kind of the true problems of people of Banff. I didn't even think about that, right? Like
every week, man,
when
for
people
years
are
now.
in their crises, that's a lot of the times places they turn, right?
100%. 100%. And we're glad, by the way, that's not a complaint. We're glad to be there, and we're glad that people feel they can come for us for any kind of assistance or help.
What made you want to get into the politics in the first place, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely a heavy endeavor to get into. You're opening yourself to public scrutiny, the workload alone, the political, terminology that's used.
Mm-hmm. And getting to the politics, I think for me that's more like an answer, like a side thing. It's more about doing the kind of work in a sense that I've already been doing. It's caring for the community, listening to people who and their story, their narrative, their struggles, and learning collaboratively how to lead our town into the future that we hope it can be. So because it's like we're calling the political stream, sure, but I'm not a politician. I don't aspire to, I think the best change we can make in this world is actually working things out locally. Provincial and obviously national has its place, no doubt. But brass tacks, sometimes we pay so much attention to that, especially online. We polarize ourselves. We get down because of international news, and not that we don't want to be informed, but the real change that you and I are going to make functionally is going to be at the local level, and so that's where my heart is, and so that's where I want to serve.
I personally love that. I don't know. On our show, we try to not dwell on too many negative things. Obviously, negative things do happen. Stuff that's newsworthy, you kind of have to talk about. But as we see ourselves as kind of like a media outlet now, it's very important. I feel like some of the national news and big major media outlets, that's kind of their purpose, is to keep people in these weird, I don't want to say depressive cycles, but maybe negative thought patterns of, everything's crumbling at the top. So how can everything be good in my life, when I kind of try to focus on the opposite? I like to focus on the community, and what we have here, I think is quite awesome.
Yeah, I tend to agree for sure. I think that there's a sense in which, and I don't want to go down specifically really negative tunnels of how we may or may not be controlled as a populace, but I think that exposing yourself too much to negativity that you may not have direct control over. I'm not saying don't be aware or be informed, because that shapes our global life. But if you want to be a change in this world, likely you're going to start at the local level and then see where that takes you, because then maybe you are called to go further, but start here.
100%.
Right? And so that's homey advice from your local vicar, I guess. So think about it, and then I guess talk to me about it if you want to push back. That's good.
Well, I think that would be advice that I would give as well. It'd be to control the positivity that you can consume in your own life, as far as I don't know, the media that you consume, the music you listen to, that type of things, right? The more positive you put in, the more positive you'll get out of your own experience, I guess. Let's move on to housing.
Let's do it.
We've heard some lofty goals from our mayor, aiming to solve the housing crisis by 2040.
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts on how we could achieve that?
Yeah. And I want to preface what I'm about to say, because you guys know it's the first time running for this office, and we were talking about it a little bit, a lot of first timers going. So I think this is great. But I think when you're in this position, especially, no one's going to have that silver bullet, that dart, that bullseye. That's the one we got to go. And I know you're not asking that from me, but it's good to keep that. That's the context.
For sure.
But I'm having a lot of fruitful conversations around these real issues. And for housing, lofty. I was thinking, I think it's ambitious in a good way. Because at the very least in life, you aim for excellence, you're likely to get good.
For sure.
Right? And if you aim for good, then who knows what's going to happen there. So no, from what I've seen, I think it's ambitious, but in a good way. And I think it's great. I also think it's likely possible, but a lot of that I've been learning about stepping into this leadership position is that we have these struggles like housing that are very real for people. And we also have what we might say is a public understanding of it. And then you start investigating maybe what it means to be a town in a national park. What are the specific rules that Banff has, and the details of it, they don't always come together. So I would say, I think they can be achieved. I bet you we could. I was talking to, I won't say names, I don't put anyone on the spot, but I was talking to a former individual, we were talking about this, and they were saying, well, okay, Banff, the leadership can't tell other businesses charge as much rent, landlords charges rent, that's not necessarily possible, but the town can dictate the rent for their own housing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so the hope is that the town could indirectly, but forcefully, sort of change the landscape, because if they bring it to below market, then landlords have to react.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reality is that as it stands, I believe that Banff controls 7% of the housing in town.
Mm-hmm.
So the numbers show that to make that credible dent indirectly, you'd have to have 30%.
Wow.
So now, so here's the thing. Now that is attainable. I mean, that would mean that the town budget, like we'd have to invest in that and say, we're going down this direction. This is the vision to own 30%. And that way, although we can't directly tell someone the rent, by us bringing it down, they're going to have to match us and then do a credible change that way.
Right.
Okay.
But that giving more supply basically at a lower value would force other. Yeah, that's a great strategy.
But then, of course, realistically, then we have to think about that. So then that means that the town would have to partner with other like private businesses doing housing,
for sure,
or partnerships with indigenous communities. Like, so it'd be a partnership move to invest in that direction, which would, I think, functionally mean that the budget. I mean, there's no infinite money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There are other things that we might not be able to invest in, and so it's, as a community, to have a vision is, if we're going to like really tackle housing, we may have to give up what we might consider certain goods to achieve a greater good. So I think we could.
Well, I think anytime it comes to housing, it's always going to have to be a give and take. It's not just going to be we can't just sprout housing out of thin air due to our circumstances, right? It's either you're giving up density or you're giving up, a front yard, or you're giving up a backyard, or at some point it's got to be a give and take. But I think, by the town controlling more, like 30% is a lot.
And from the conversations I've had, it's not an impossible feat. It just means that we'd have to, the budget would be geared toward that. That'd be the town mission. It'd be above board. And then we'd all right, this is the direction we're going. And then we say, we bracket other goals that we have to address a serious goal. I'm not against that. I'm not saying that's the solution, by the way. I'm just saying that's a credible perspective.
No, of course. Well, thank you for, again, bringing another credible solution to the table, because that's the first time we've heard of 30% maybe ownership by the town.
Crazy.
And maybe even, teaming up with private developers to either build higher density or, as places become available, or empty lots like 50 Wolf Street. They're doing a great job, and that's
100%.
exactly the plan there, right? So moving forward on stuff like that. The big stimulus that we got from, I think, the provincial government into building more housing as well. So, at least hope is on the horizon, right? In that way, for sure. Sorry here.
So would that be one of your top priorities, given the chance that you've got to run for council? Like, what would be something that you would implement if you could, as far as the housing crisis goes?
Yeah, I think that for sure. No, I think housing would have to be like top priority. Yeah, really, at least from where I'm standing right now. I saw this article not too long ago. Maybe you guys did too. It was a publication, a national publication, and it was a story about an individual who was saying that they were doing counseling, which is great, but they were being prescribed all this medication, and then they said, but once they had stable housing, it turns out they didn't really need the medication, and so it was a housing issue that was being addressed as a psychological medication issue, but it's actually just he needed to know that he could go home and he wasn't going to be evicted or kicked out. He just had a place to stay.
Fair enough.
And so I think that is like a key to understanding who we are as people. And for sure, that should be a priority.
Oh, for sure. Like, that can cause some stress. Like, I moved already once this year. I got to move again. It's still like, it's always kind of just in the back of your head. You're like, I still got to find somewhere to go. Like, it's the end of my lease, right? So
for sure, dude.
That's wild that it's like, it's that big of a problem. And like, people don't realize that, right? Like, they're just like, oh, whatever, just find somewhere to rent. It's like, that might be easier, like, said than done. Like, you can't just go
100%.
out and, okay, hey, we got a great place to live now. It's like, I got 10 years here. It's, you're kind of, especially in Banff, like the first year I was here, I moved like 4 times, 5 times. It's just like, start in the hostel, and then you move into staff comm, and then you get a new job, and maybe you work on the mountain, you move into staff comm there, and then the season ends. You move back to town, you try to find an apartment, or like move in with a girlfriend or something just to split rent, and then that doesn't work out, so somebody leaves and you move, and then it's just like, I don't know, it's such a different housing market here, I guess, like compared to, because like we don't have a lot of like purchasers. Like there aren't, like, not the average person in Banff can't afford.
There's a lot of renters. There's
Like,
a lot of renters
yeah,
in the
like-
pool for sure. There's always going to be more renters than there is places to live.
Like our
right?
house is for sale, like the one that we are in right now, and I can in 1,000 years afford a down payment even on a house like this. You know what I mean? So
Joe Rulin did bring up a good point. I think if more people did this, that might change the landscape of home ownership, especially in the Bow Valley. And that was purchasing homes with people that you just get along with, like, you know what I mean?
enough.
Like no romantic relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
You just had a friend and they bought a house together. And he said it was one of the best investments they've ever made. So, you know, that
yeah, fair enough.
alternative means of home ownership, I think, should be explored as the landscape gets, you know, steeper and steeper. The barrier to entry gets higher and higher.
Right.
I think that's just like the most logical solution, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the housing in Banff. You kind of just have to team up. Like not many single renter units in town that you can afford. I mean, you could rent a place on your own, but you're going to be $2,000 and up plus bills, and you know what I mean. So it's
on the low end, I feel.
On the low end, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what you want.
Yeah, that's real, man. How could that not color your everyday?
Well, exactly.
How could that not affect you? So, you know, just to wrap up your question, yeah, this has to be a priority.
Awesome.
100%.
Well, again, great to hear that you, like you said, like you prefaced it with it being your first time. It sounds like you're informing yourself quite rapidly on the subject. So
It's the spiritual power, if you will.
I got to tip my hat to you on that one. Overtourism. What do you think about it, the term itself, and do you think it's something that's affecting us here in Banff?
Oh, man. Yes, I have thought a lot about it. And it's such a rich question. I think like thinking about overtourism or just thinking about our town life is going to be really probing and sobering for how we think about human life in general. I'll be real. So overtourism, and I've had, fruitful conversations. I also appreciate your interviews you've had here. And obviously you've been talking about that, and so informative. So I appreciate you guys. And I think a common refrain that's come up that I think is accurate is to say, when we say something like overtourism, we're talking about a term, an experience that is at least superficially subjective, because that can mean different things for different people.
Right.
I think you've heard the notion of like, well, for someone who's like more on the has come to Banff to like retire and have a really chill life, then that means like bumping into a couple of people on Banff Avenue when it's a little busy. Like, I don't like that. But if you work in a restaurant, especially if you're a waiter and you depend on people coming through, realistically, then that's the overtourism question is not the same for you. And I think that's very real. Is that so? There's a sense in which it's a subjective reality. Like, how do we even approach this? Now, my concern with acknowledging the subjective nature of this problem of overtourism is that if you leave it there and say, well, then we all have different perspectives, then what you're doing is you're using subjectivity as kind of a blanket or a shield to not really address the issue realistically. Now, I was talking to someone about this, and I was saying, you're right. There is a subjective element to the overtourism question. But you may know this from popular culture. This is years ago, like 1960s, I think. There was an international film that went up all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court because they were trying to understand if it was, is this an artistic film or is this pornography?
Okay.
And so the justice presiding, they're famous for this quote. They're saying, well, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And so there's a sense in which, even though we have different perspectives on what overtourism might be, I think we're all rubbing up or having a friction about this reality. And so I think what we have to do when we talk about overtourism, well, what is it really? And I'm persuaded because, for example, if you're like working in the service industry and you depend on people coming through, likely your answer won't be people. A little bit.
Right.
Like my wife, if you ever met her, she's the best. And she will go at like peak times and is really busy. She has no qualms about going to Banff Avenue. I suspect she likes it. Just being around people, bro, I really believe that.
Yeah.
Now, the way I guess I built my temperament, sometimes I think of Banff as being like, oh man, I want to have like this Walden or like Rivendell experience, you know, like nature and quiet. And then, I'm not like my wife. So how do we start to grapple with this overtourism question? I think a key thing we have to do is understand what Banff actually is. And that's one of the things that you guys have talked about. And I know you talk about the rules of incorporation, the goals for what Banff is. And realistically, Banff, we're in a national park and we're basically a host town, right? Because people are welcome and invited to come to the national park. And we're meant to, at some level, equip people. I mean, if they need victuals, if they need to rest somewhere, we're meant to do that. So if you're in town, you may have a misunderstanding or non-understanding of like, we're here to host. Because when I was in Toronto, for example, when I was doing my grad work there, and I have a buddy who owned a house, it's his own story there. And so he was very kind to us. He let me and all of his buddies live there, really like rent. We paid rent, but it was very minimal.
Okay.
And he was really wonderful. And so we were all there. But at the same time, I was the only one doing grad studies at that time. Now, they weren't party animals, but they did host. They had a lot of fun in that house.
Yeah.
And I moved in there knowing that's the lifestyle.
Right.
And if I went there being like, well, I want basically a home library and it better be quiet because I'm doing grad work. Like I think, Seth, you're misunderstanding the fundamental nature of this home. And so you have to like reappropriate or recalibrate your expectations. So I think it's part of the understanding the overtourism question is like recalibrating our expectations of what the town is. And the second part, I think, where we start, at least to understand this, and this is going to be a repetitive theme in what we're talking about, is when we all say our perspectives, what's the overtourism? How am I interacting with this? And let's say, oh, well, I'm a server, so I actually do appreciate when a lot of people come through. Then what's the common denominator that we're all not saying we like? And I think the one that shows up often is no one is saying, a new friend said, no one has said, we want more cars in town.
Fair.
Right? No one, I don't think, to my knowledge, has said that. So, okay, maybe we start there. And maybe this is the common friction, and we have to then talk about that.
For sure. I think we've dived into this idea that maybe it's not a people problem, it's a vehicle problem. It's how do we get the people in without the influx of vehicles, which we will talk about in a little bit, different ways that we can do that.
Yeah.
When it comes to vehicles, would you ever support a cap on vehicles in the busier summer months if necessary?
Yeah.
Or if deemed necessary, I would say.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it approached that answer at least two ways right now. One is to try to understand our legal standing. Is that something that we can credibly talk about as a town? Can we do that? I'm not persuaded that we can. So that's part of it. But the other part of it, again, going back to the part about like people versus vehicles, when we say cap, like put a cap on vehicles, my concern is that we're approaching a much more complex question with a kind of like simplistic solution. I'll tell you what I mean. But because when we talk about vehicles, we're talking about what we believe about vehicles. And I'll share what I mean with a little story, a little folksy wisdom.
Please.
Eons ago, I was a youth pastor, and I was working. I was working at a church in Toronto, and so a part of my mandate, I'd say, on a given Sunday, I'd be with some youth, and we talk about, being jazzed for Jesus, but we talk about other things too. And I had one of my then grade 9s, who today is probably a grown man, and I forget what we were talking about exactly, but he said to me, Seth, like we've basically figured out society and culture. Like we might have some like lingering homophobia or something like that, whatever we have to like address, but we've kind of figured it out. We figured out, and I don't want to be too mean because I know you're not the wisest you are, grade 9 boy.
Yeah.
But I appreciate his gumption to say it out loud. But at some level, I think there's like a nugget of that we do believe that our problems are like these things that we've identified, and maybe the solution to these problems are actually much deeper that we haven't. So this is what I said to the young man, or paraphrase it. I didn't want to burst his bubble too hard, but I'm like, I forget. I'm not going to say his name, but like, okay, Billy, we figured it out. Let me just share something with you. In that year in Toronto, at that time, the Toronto had upwards of 40,000 fatalities due to vehicles hurting pedestrians.
Okay.
GTA.
Significant number.
That's a significant number.
No doubt.
And I said, okay, so that's wild when you hear it. And then you think, but part of why that's happened, we can talk about like crosswalks and lights and all this engineering and like data. But I think a big part of why that occurred is because we have developed a culture that in the end values vehicles more than people. That we've said vehicles matter. This is just like an essential part of how we exist. And so we're not going to trade on that. And we make it like, this is how modern life happens. And then you zoom out and look at other parts of the world, and that's not a given. Even the size of it, you have like an F-350 roiling through Muskrat. Like, well, this is just how life is. How could it be otherwise? And I think part of the question we have to consider is, are the givens that we think are just the structures of our life and it couldn't be different? Is that true? Can we interrogate that? Because maybe when we talk about the problems of vehicles that we have in our town, that we as a people might be contributing by supporting or upholding or not questioning how we approach vehicles, like how normalized that is.
Fair.
And so to say, I just want to put a limit is to say, I don't really want to investigate or think about this and how I'm contributing to this, but how I approach vehicles, I just want to do something. And first, I don't think we have a legal basis. And B, that would be at best a very band-aid solution and a real problem that we have to address, not just with more reports, more graphs, but has to actually have to like interrogate ourselves and be like, how do I think differently about this? Because then we'll have a different view of like car share programs, or really as a town, really invest in like stronger bike lanes and that kind of like that's an investment, right?
Because if you look at percentage wise, and you do raise a very, very good point, right? Like if you look at a road versus a sidewalk, we have invested more space and more resources into vehicles than into people.
Yeah. Well, like
that's
look at places like Amsterdam. Like everybody rides their bike there. Like nobody drives there.
Yeah,
it's like, well, and I mean they do, but it's like for your everyday get around, you just hop on a bike. Like Sweden, I believe, has like a few of the same programs where like there's towns that just
you have to leave your car outside of the town and then take alternate means of transportation to get in.
No cars in Venice. I mean, you might say, well, that's like the geographical makeup. I'm like, well, we have a geographical makeup that we value and we love. Anyways, you know what I'm saying?
It's a great take, honestly. I really like it. When it comes to frontline workers, right? We talked about it a little bit from a housing perspective. Cost of living, obviously, seasonal job insecurity, just the nature of Banff. Right. Those that are here for a short time tend to experience that more than us that have been here a long, long time. My question about the frontline workers, how can the town do a better job of supporting them, in your opinion? Because you're involved in those roles already, right? Banff Food and Friends being a tremendous ally to supporting frontline workers. And of course, all the work you do at the church.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So this, I mean, I think a lot of the heart for all of us, but I think a special heart for the folks who are like frontline workers is the housing question. It's just so challenging. And a big thing that I think the town is seeing, we've all been seeing, is that often the people that are contributing so essentially to our economy are the very ones that just can't even live in Banff.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right? And then they have to go to Canmore or elsewhere. And then what's happening when they work here? Well, they're yet another vehicle.
Or multiple jobs into where like your quality of life tends to suffer, and do you really get to enjoy the beauty of this place if you're working
you're working 60
hours a week?
You're working 16 hours a day. What are you going to do? Like, you know, I've done it. I've had 2 jobs in the summer just to like get some extra cash or, you know, whatever. Well, you do have the work, because we all know in the winter seasons, it slows down a bit. Hours get cut. So, I mean,
I've had 2 jobs in Banff for more years than I've not had 2 jobs in Banff,
which is crazy, which is like back home, like, no one has 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like where I grew up, it's like you work in a factory or, you know, you work somewhere. It's like you've got one full-time job that's basically enough to get you, you know, some decent housing. Like you can get
and a weekend.
Yeah. And a weekend. Yeah. And so you can get like 2-bedroom, you know, townhouse that you can afford. You can afford groceries. You know, you can afford to go out for dinner. But here it's like, there's a lot of people that it's, you know, you work for your paycheck and then you're working for your next one so you can kind of pay your bills and pay your rent, right?
Yeah. I mean, have you considered the priesthood? No, I'm joking. It's housing. No, for real. No, sorry. This is serious, bro. I gotta calm down. But consider it. No, that's the thing. So when we're saying how do we make life better for these folks who are essential to our town, and notice that a lot of these folks also don't have voting rights too, so they're in a very
fair.
Well, that's it. Like
circumstance.
That's kind of my question too, because I feel like those are often the people that maybe can't speak out for themselves due to their situation. Right.
Well, when you got your housing attached to your job, like, what do you're not going to ruffle any feathers at work, despite what may be happening. You know what I mean? Because you get canned, you're homeless in 24 hours.
And not all of the people in those positions are like temporary workers or like,
no.
Like there's a lot of those positions that are filled by Canadians that stay here long term as well, right?
No, I've had dear friends, you know, that happens. That's it's almost so cyclical, almost so boring. Not that it's not sad. It's just that how many people that I've known that I've cared about, crashed in my couch, dude, or take the room because I lost my job. You're unhoused. You're homeless, bro.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing. So I think the housing component, so going back to what I said before, well, part of that would be to find strategies to unattach housing from work would be a very key thing. So maybe the plan of like investing in like up to 30% of the housing. And so at least that's not attached to your work. But where we stand now, because we're looking, that's like a 2040 plan, right? But where we're standing now, okay, so what can the town practically do? And again, think about things realistically. What the town can't directly tell landlords, don't do landlordism. Like you can tell them, but okay, I don't care about what you just said. Yeah. But the town, I think, has been doing, I think, actually quite well, and we can always just do more. And I want to be part of that. Is maybe, like, for example, giving access, affordable access to activities or enjoying the town, like Rome passes, making the town has been great at supporting food programs. Shout out to town of Banff and Powell Foundation, BCF, like all these, Catherine Trito Foundation. I'm going to give them the shout outs because they invest in Food and Friends, for example, and other food programs. Yeah. And that's why, for example, Food Friends, like when you come, I hope you guys come out, because often people have a misconception about it. It's like, is that a soup kitchen? It's like, no, it's a delicious meal for anyone. Like I go there every Monday, and you don't have to pay. I mean, if you want to donate, because people often want to give, which I bless that, do it, but you don't have to. And so for the town and leadership to be investing in these other ways, so you come in from the side. Right now, maybe we don't have the ability to like directly address the housing issue in the way that we want to, though it's being worked at. But working it from the side, I think the town is doing a good job, and I just want to push that more.
Well, that is another way to address cost of living, right?
100%.
If you can provide one free meal, it's a little bit of stress. You don't have to prepare that night. Maybe, if you do have a family, it's a fun, interactive. You can go meet other people, build that community like we were talking about earlier. Maybe you'll find yourself a place to live at that.
No, and there's another local church, which I won't name them right now because I don't put too much heat on them, but they are working towards doing like a Food and Friends type thing, but they're going to do breakfast, I think.
Oh, cool.
Amazing. Yeah, so I think they're working with the town and other like local stakeholders, and so this is what I'm talking about. And that, going back to the question why I love Banff, is because you say, I have an idea to do this. Come together. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, how can I do Food and Friends twice a week? And like we all got to come together and help. So I think the town is helping, because you can always go to them and I need help, support, and they will do that. So that's what I would want to do, and do more of that until we can more forcefully address the housing question.
Well, it's a good way to address it without directly addressing it, which was exactly my question, right? Like besides housing, how could, it's
well, like how many people do we know that like, do food rescue?
100%.
Food rescue is huge.
Food bank and all that. Yeah.
Well, food rescue too, it's like a double whammy, right? Not only are you providing food to people who need it, but you're also saving the waste. So it's
and they're wonderful. They give us all our treats at Food and Friends. So we used to buy them and make them at cookies and stuff. And now for a season now, they've been giving us all the treats, which means that we have more budget to do the entree.
Amazing.
So shout out Alana and the team. They're wonderful.
And I follow Banff Food and Friends on Instagram. If you don't, you probably should.
Please do.
You see the dishes that they're putting out, and
it's real. No, we have like fantastic chefs, man.
It ain't no soup kitchen, I'll tell you that.
When it's like hot dogs, it's me. And no one came out. Just flipping them like I suck.
I'd go for a couple of glizzies.
Do it. Oh, yeah. Please. All right. It'd be just you and me.
Me and Seth just sitting there eating a whole platter full of hot dogs.
Clearly I have. Clearly.
So the town recently has been involved in drafting the latest community plan. Have you had a look at it, or had any involved in the public input?
No, I wasn't involved in the public input, but I have reviewed it and continue to review it. Yeah, it's great.
What do you think are some of the good points, and what are some of the gaps that you think need to be filled?
I think it's wonderfully comprehensive, actually. So, and I know you guys have talked about it quite a bit on the show, and I want to highlight one thing that I love, but also I don't want to necessarily call it a gap, but maybe a way of thinking of it and moving forward. And it was actually it's a notion around sustainability, which is like a key notion. And when we say that word, I think everyone's like, generally speaking, yes. And you know what I love? I didn't finish it, darn it, but I was watching your interview with Peter Poole.
Yeah,
he's a dear friend, and I really respect him. And I think you know where I'm going, because y'all talked about this. I loved it because he did like a very gentle heart check, and that's Peter, man. And because he asked you sustainability as a goal, and like, do you want that? He brought it around relationally. Yeah, would you want that with your partner? And would I want sustainability with my wife? And of course, the natural answer is, well, no, that's not the goal, right? Because when we talk about like a relationship, if you want more than sustainability, you want flourishing, and then the community plan talks about thriving. So I think that these are commensurate terms. Okay, so sustainability. The reason why I highlight that is because if that's a guiding light for the community plan, for us as a town, we want sustainability. again, we have to then think, similar to the car question, what is it saying about how we approach this question? Because, for example, you hear like sustainable fisheries or forests, and when you say that, what it is you have a patch of land where the trees grow, you cut them down, use them for like the lumber, you plant them, and you go and you use it over and over again.
Right.
And what's happening there is with best intentions, you're approaching nature mechanistically. As raw resources, that fundamentally the highest value I can place on you to take care of you is that you are raw resources, inanimate objects for me to use and make my human life better. Now, that's troubling because then sometimes you talk about parking or figuring out our community here, and people talk about wildlife corridors, and I even heard words like sacrosanct. No, you can't. That conversation can't even happen because that's sacrosanct. And now that is not mechanistic term. That's like a spiritual term, by the way. Yeah. And so what's happening is that maybe our perspective on sustainability is not going to be sufficient to help us think about Banff and how we want to protect it for the future, because everything we're talking about here is to say we want Banff to move forward in time to the next generation. We want to protect it. And so is sustainability the best thing we want? Well, we don't accept that within human relationships, the meaningful ones.
Right.
Well, I have a meaningful relationship with this living a part of the world, this gem with the mountains and the rivers and the trees and the histories of the people who came before us.
Yeah.
How we're here today, the people that will come in the future. Is sustainable strong enough to encapsulate that? I would argue not. I think if we have a desire to have thriving and flourishing relationally, when we have a relationship with this land, with this part of the world, and we have to start thinking not merely sustainably, but how do we flourish? Because you have your story, I have my story. We're going to negotiate that together. And then we all do it together. Then we have a story, a Banff story. And how are we going to take that story into the future? And I think notions like sustainable, of course, are laudable, and we should have that. I don't want to go below that.
Of course.
Definitely don't want to be below that.
Right.
But if you're asking for like a kind of a gap, well, I don't want to say so much a gap, but this is a great start. But it has to be a start. I think we have to go further than sustainable. Thriving is a great word. And then once you think in those terms, like, oh, this is sacrosanct, or I have a story, this is a living part of the world, then what's going to happen once you start inhabiting that space is that possible solutions to problems that we have said no to because they were evacuated because, no, this is a raw material, have a different valence. Because we've talked about, for example, parking. And then the notion always comes up, well, no, underground parking is, in the end, for various reasons, too expensive.
Right.
And so because we're talking about raw materials, then we're also talking about like dollars and cents and data reports and graphs. And so it doesn't get off the ground. But when you have a relationship with someone, for example, like, your family, your friendship, suddenly you don't think, oh, this is too much money. I mean, money will play a part, but I have one of my dearest friends, Nick, I always love and always give him shout outs. I was a part of my life when I was like my early 20s, and I had some friends that were doing the university thing and doing like moving ahead in their lives in a sense. And then at that time in my life, I was kind of like, I was knee deep in partying and doing other things that I probably shouldn't have been involved in. And I got into a lot of debt. I was trying to go back to school, and then I couldn't afford to go back to school, and I was stuck. And I had to pay rent, I had to work, and I couldn't get ahead. And I had a dream about this, and it's so bizarre to say it that way, that I had called my buddy Nick for help. It was just a dream. Let me pick up the phone and ask him. So when I woke up, I'm like, what could I lose? And so I called Nick. Now, this is a dear friend. And I said, Nick, it's going to sound really weird, bro. And we're close friends, so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask you for a favor. And if you say no, it will never impact the friendship you and I have. Yeah. Because I'm like, but can I just borrow some money so I can put some money on this debt so I can get back to school and have my life back? Even $500 that I didn't have will help me so much here. And he was like, at that time he was working out west because we're in Ontario. He was out west here as an RCMP officer. And he's like, bro, they're giving me too much money. And I got housing too. So like, I'm good. I'll give you the full several grand. I'll send it to you and you can just have your life back. Now, maybe you and I can count on one hand, the friends that we have, the relationship that we have, that in a pinch we can call. Incredibly, they might give us like a ton of cash. But because it's in the context of a relationship, even a lot of money, in the end, it becomes merely money. But you have solutions for life. Right. So if we have a town that we have a relationship with, that we have a narrative and a story, not mere resources, then solutions that could be credible, except for money and graphs, suddenly become maybe real options. And I think that this is like an understanding and an approach. I'm not offering a solution, but I'm saying maybe we change the circumstances of how we're thinking of things. And then we need to be creative. But creativity can't be locked to the givens of like can't change. We have a checkerboard that we think is a checkerboard, and it's only like 5 squares with 4 pieces. Then you can't really do much.
Yeah.
So you have to expand the way you're thinking about things.
I would agree with you
have
there. I
solution.
think Grant had a really good point of that. Is looking at the vision of what we want, and I think the vision of what a lot of us would want would be to leave a better Banff behind than what we got. Right? Like I think that would be a very like a positive goal that I think everyone would agree with. Right?
Yeah.
So I agree in your sense of maybe looking at it in a different sense, and I always kind of thought the same thing. Is like, why is money always an issue when we're talking about these problems? When money shouldn't be an issue, when we're, our national park kind of funds all the other ones. Like we should have unlimited resources, and looking at, I think looking at it from a more humanistic perspective.
Yeah. Well, for people, I mean, I don't want to be too I want to be sensitive here, but when you hear how people value Banff, and what makes Banff is this incredible gift of nature that is not of us. We enter like spiritual territory, bro. Like I'm serious. Like it's 100%. Not. Doesn't go back to like, well, empirically, like no, the love that you have and the value you have is something else. And I think I'm not trying to religify politics necessarily. What I'm saying is look at the intuitions that we already have and be honest about those. So sustainability is, I would say, a good term or adequate term. Great to start there. Let's move beyond. But then you're going to need a vision and have buy-in. Because I think my instinct is that to get the changes that we want in the future that we can almost have a hint at is going to involve trading some goods for greater goods. Essentially, what's an invitation to is a level of sacrifice, sacrificing my comfort to allow Banff to be that beautiful home and nature that we know it can be. So we all have to put in. And so we got to start thinking of it in those terms.
Very well said.
No doubt.
Very well said. What are your thoughts on the train station ARP in that line of thinking? Do you think building more infrastructure to get people in here without vehicles is something we should focus on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I've been thinking about this, learning about this, and I think it's a little tricky because the ARP is, as I understand it, is not a firm commitment, but like an idea of how it could play itself out.
Yeah. We have made this distinction before because people are quick to vilify it, and again, we've been culprits of that ourselves. It's like the plan says this and this, we can't be doing that, like that, right? Like paving huge parking lots and great distinction to make, of course.
And so you guys are informed, so you correct me here if I'm wrong on this one, but like, so for example, the parking lot there, I think currently it can house upwards of 1,000 cars, let's say a day in parking. Is that?
I believe the stalls itself is around 500.
But then they're switching out.
Exactly. So there would be housing going into where that parking lot is now, and then the new parking lot would be conjoined to the Fenlands parking lot, which would be, I think, upwards of 800 or 900 stalls.
Yeah.
Now that seemed like a very scary number to me at first, before it was kind of mentioned of where this paving would happen, which is already gray zoned or used area. We've mentioned it before. There's like CP barracks up there. There's a big pile of dirt or sand or whatever. There's a fenced in area.
Yeah, they've got like the service yard over there as well.
Yeah.
So
my question about that, try to understand it, is okay, so you can get these vehicles set up in this parking lot, but how much is that actually addressing the intense population that's already going to be coming in? Because you can envision that the parking lot will be full and then the vehicles are still coming in. So is this a strategy ultimately? I mean, I think what it can do is it'll probably, if it was enacted, it could successfully bring people from an airport to Banff. The people.
Well, that's it.
But the cars are still going to come in.
I think it's like it would address rental vehicles for people that are staying multiple days in the Bow Valley. So if you're doing Canmore, Banff, Lake Louise, you probably wouldn't then have to rent a vehicle and bring it into the town site.
Right.
You would just take the train directly from the airport. Bingo, bango, you'd be here. Now, I don't think that's the biggest issue. I don't like the amount of people that are renting vehicles, especially just with the availability of rental vehicles nowadays. The day trippers is where it's at. And I feel, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but when I see the influx of rental cars, I think it's the day trippers. It's people from Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton that maybe don't have vehicles that want to come experience it, maybe for the first time, or
fair enough,
or at all. You would rent a vehicle for the day or 2 days and come down and do your thing, right? Like I've done that before to go to Jasper.
Yeah.
Before I had a vehicle, I would rent a vehicle, go to Jasper, and bring it back. Right? Like,
no, for sure. And so, like, as a quick, like, to answer that question, like, I think, like anything, all the issues that we're talking about, they're all interrelated. So I think it being like a transit hub, a place where people can come in and be the gateway, so to speak, for the town, could be a serviceable function. But I think the question of the vehicles that we've been coming back to again and again as being at the friction point, it's going to be addressed by how the town's moving forward towards having like stronger bike lanes, car share programs, and typically car share programs. I mean, we're talking about like smaller vehicles, anyways.
for sure.
So like, it's I don't want to put too much freight on the ARP because again, it's not a commitment; it's an idea, and so it could look differently. And so part of the responsibility of the community, the leadership town moving forward, is to like, okay, how do we shape this? And so that's gonna actually what that's an invitation to, because it's not a strong commitment, is to be hearing from the town, from the folks who make Banff home. So how, when it's being shaped into commitment, what does it look like? But that's going to imply everything else. So for what it's worth, that's what I think.
There's a lot of moving parts for sure. Big
Yes.
business. There's traffic. There's big business. There's implementation of infrastructure on already existing infrastructure. It's definitely multifaceted. And again, the province is committed to these infrastructure projects. So, like you said, we've said this before, it might even be over our heads anyways, whether this train is coming or not.
Yeah.
But how it is implemented, I think, is very much in our hands. So your perspective is definitely one to consider. And I would agree with it, honestly.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All this said, why should people vote for you?
Oh, yeah. No, that's solid. You know, a lot of what we've been circling around here, and I know there's more issues than what we can cover. I appreciate that you guys are doing like 3 episodes. So y'all got long days. God bless you guys. What we've been talking about and the future of this town and the issues that we face, there's a sense in which you can have folks in leadership where these are analytic problems that are abstract problems for them, like an idea, like a chessboard.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to think of it analytically, but they're my lived experience. I've spent years now in Banff working with people, listening to them, listening to what they're struggling with, listening at their needs, and doing my best to meet them as best I can with the tools that I've been offered. I'm married. I have 4 children. I rent. I'm very blessed to have what I might call like a benevolent landlord who definitely gives me rent below market, because if it was at market, I could not afford it. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, man, being a priest is not lucrative. It's not a powerful salary. I'm grateful for it, but so these are real things for me. I think I may have sent it to you as my bio, but like my parents were immigrants. I have that perspective. I know what it's like to grow in a context where it's new for you, or you might not feel totally at home. And a lot of people in town, I know they're not voters, but they matter. And I know that I have like my life to be able to appreciate the aspects of their struggle, and so I care about them, and I want to be able to speak for them. And so I think, not to be too like on the nose of this one, but I'm a person of color, man. That changes how you live in our world right now, and that's so all these perspectives that I bring, proven leadership. These are the parts of who I am that I think this is what leadership needs, you know, because we've talked about Banff Food and Friends, and obviously I don't have like civic leadership experience at the level that we're talking about right now, but we have Food and Friends, and I really appreciate how you guys have been like, yeah, this is a great program, you know, and I think that's what people are saying. I really treasure that people feel so blessed about it, that they're like, this is a great program. Now it's going to be weird what I'm about to tell you, given how we all see it now, but when this idea was pitched and was starting, there was a strong cohort who were dead against it, because you had things like, and even in the church, I'm embarrassed to say, a lot of these folks are no longer, for various reasons, like part of the community. They moved on, they moved away, all that kind of stuff. Is to say things were said like this: "Wow, we don't have the money for that," or that's not part of our budget line too, because credibly at the very beginning, the church had to cover a lot of the expenses, right? Yeah. Or we have like our hall and our building, it's like a heritage thing. We're gonna have all this foot traffic and it's gonna ruin the infrastructure. And so we got to care about that. So there's budget concerns or building concerns, or there were some perspectives that were saying, people are tourists are coming to town, these young people, and they shouldn't expect to have it easy here because
they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly. They have to expect that they're going to pay a premium. I've still heard that from people who come to Banff Food and Friends. Anyways, so we had serious blocks. And I want to give a special credit to Reverend Howard, who was my boss, who he fought for this program. And later when he retired and I inherited the leadership and we kept pushing for it, And we had a lot of people at the, even now, different perspectives, different demographics, different age groups, different spiritual takes, to be like, no, we're going to fight for this good, even though it is going to be costly, because this is a benefit for the town, for the community. And so that means like listening, building trust across serious differences. This is what leadership is. I've said it before and I say it again. It's important to have like knowledge of the data reports and the stats and the numbers. But I'll tell you right now, having mastery over all that does not aggregate to leadership quality. Because if it was just merely about knowing all the data, then I'll tell you right now, take your laptop, put the laptop in the console, load up Gemini or ChatGPT, feed it all information, and it'll be the most informed.
I heard that like Argentina did that. Like
did they
had, some like
they're ahead of the game, baby.
It might have just been like a headline, but it was like they were swearing in like an AI program as one of their ministers of something.
Well, the Vatican had the AI priest, and then he was, I think, defrocked for spewing heresy or something. It was, I don't know, man. But my point is not that you shouldn't know stuff, but I'm not marketing myself. In fact, I've tried to say over and over again, I'm trying to give an understanding. I'm not giving you all because there's so much I still have to learn.
For sure.
But what I do bring to answer your question is that I have proven leadership, that I can work with diverse people, diverse perspectives, and that I care about these issues because they're part of my life, people that I care about, people that I've known, I still know in town. And we need that voice. For all the things that I've said, we need that kind of voice and leadership to make our town go forward.
100%.
So I'm not a career politician, but I step forward because I genuinely believe in that.
Well, I think you bring forward the perspective of a lot of us, as in renter. You could say you're a frontline worker, you work with people.
No,
in the community, like you are, and
I appreciate that.
We kind of all are indirectly, right? So
with my little robes.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I think you bring a very interesting perspective in the way of maybe we've been looking at our problems the wrong way and maybe managing our own expectations on where we live and, realizing, yeah, we are here to service the greater good and the tourists that come by. I love
100%.
I love being a frontline worker and dealing with tourists. Like you serve tables here in Banff, people are way happier than serving tables in a city. You know what I mean? So we're already blessed, like you said. Sorry to take the blessed words from your mouth, but we're already in a great position to live here. And I think it's how can we make this place better and leave it for the next generation or the next town council or the next, put in that framework for a better Banff. So,
because you guys, for all you could have kids in the next decade or so. I'm not going to put that blessing or curse on you. I'm just saying that, once upon a time I was like, I'm never having kids. No. Now I had like 4 of them. And so you can think about that, So yeah, we want to leave it better than how we have today. And it's possible. I wouldn't step forward because, if you said, like, I'm busy, I have kids, I have a full-time vocation, like I love what I do. I wouldn't step forward if I didn't believe there was hope. I think there's a solid plans are in place. I think we have people in leadership who care. So I'm not putting myself forward saying I care, but they don't. No, but to be part of a team that can be held accountable, that can communicate, that be like, we have a hope for this town, and therefore we got to fight for it. That's why I do it.
Well, I think that kind of answers our last question. Was what was the most hope? What are you most hopeful for when you think of the future in Banff? I think.
Yeah,
I think you nailed it. Like,
well, I guess what I said.
Working together.
I think if I thought for a second that we would not come together, it was a different type of town, bro. I would just do what I'm doing and fight, kind of like the noble losing battle, whatever that is. I don't feel that way. I am tremendously hopeful that we can make these changes. That's why when you look at the 2040 plan, all that, is it lofty? Is it ambitious? Sure. In the best way possible. We can do this.
As we should be.
100%.
I think we talked about that in Corey's episode, is like bold solutions will require bold strategies and bold thinking and bold action, And
gotta do it sooner or later, right? Like,
you need courage, you need conviction, you need people that care.
Mm-hmm.
So 100%.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for today, Seth. Thank you so much for joining us and
that was great.
lending us your perspectives. Honestly, when I was first thinking that we're going to interview someone so heavily involved in the church, this is not what I expected.
Honestly. Well, do you want to talk about Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? We can do that now. Cut his mic.
No, just in like, I don't know. You've been very, very personable, and I like very open-minded. I feel your thought process on how we should look at problems, I think, is a very important aspect of how we should look at things. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us. This has been awesome. It's been great meeting you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for sharing.
Heck
You too, guys. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate this time. Really appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work. This is excellent work. Thank you. No, serious.
Appreciate the kind words.
100%.
Mike every week. See you next Tuesday.